Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 147, and we're going to talk about a bunch of topics, hot topics that are, all over Twitter. It's kind of difficult to get the episode going because so many things are happening all at once. And so let's just get started. First, I have a theory, a conspiracy theory, but a good one that Donald Trump was supposed to be unalive, right? That whatever was supposed to happen that day would have been successful, and so he'd be unalive. The day before, someone took out a large short position against his company, hoping to make a lot of money. Something similar happened before 9/11, which basically is the signal or the sign that somebody knew ahead of time. And so they were going to try to get some kind of financial windfall from that event. Also consider, and I've said this before, the most obvious sniper positions were unattended, left open, even though there was suspicious activity around the one building. Still, people weren't sent there. Very suspicious. And it was a lone gunman, really, to have so much information, to have so much pre-planning. It's, in my mind, okay, an individual who really knew what they were doing may be able to do it, but then to have the building clear so that you can just simply climb a ladder a short distance away from your target and just be able to get shots off, it's just very odd. The cyber attack, which they're calling a software update problem. Yeah, I think if you look at it in the context of if Trump was unalive, then of course it would be this pile on. Oh, now this is happening, right? And my wife is telling me that some people, the access to their bank accounts still is not in the way it normally is. Not only did you have flights being canceled, people missing their flights, all of these other things going on. So imagine if that was happening in the context where Trump is unalive. Then over this past weekend, you see Israel attacking Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen. There's escalation of violence. They're being stretched to their limit. Netanyahu is on his way here to the United States, supposedly to meet with Biden to talk about funding and strategy and things like that. And then you have Biden suddenly withdrawing from the race. The way that I saw things playing out, that if Trump was unalive, then Biden could easily do what they did in Ukraine, which is cancel the election and say, because of Iran, we got to go to war. And so therefore we're going to cancel elections. Very, very convenient. But not only is Trump still alive, but Biden suddenly has corona, right? And so he suddenly, no one has seen him for days. And all of a sudden there's this tweet, a letter, which has very questionable signature on it. And he's withdrawing from the race. And he says that Kamala Harris is now going to be the new candidate. But is he still president? Like, if he's too sick to have run for re-election, he's too sick to make an appearance, he's too sick to even sign his statement that he's no longer running for president, but he can still be president, right? As I was told very clearly when Trump was in office, the person who has the control of the nuclear launch codes, yeah, it has to be someone who, is in control of, knows where he is. So can he still do that? Who's running the country? Because obviously, Biden hasn't been himself in the last 4 years. So who has been running the country? I mentioned it yesterday in my sermon that I believe that America has become a kleptocracy, that he's just an empty suit. And so people just come and, it's like tapping the Mac machine. It's like, hey, we need a couple billion for Ukraine. Okay, We need a billion for Israel. Okay. And so everyone, while he still was alive, they were trying to get as much as they could from this country, from the taxpayers of America. And so that's why it's a kleptocracy. And so now Biden is out of the race. And I'll get to a little bit more. My wife just told me that Harris just flew into Delaware. And so it's probably to take the oath of office, right? Biden is probably near death, or my thought is that he's already dead. He died days ago, and they came up with a plan. They didn't tell anyone, whoever's really running the country, maybe Jill Biden. And then they came up with this plan, and now the plan is moving forward. So it's a coup, obviously, right? But it's an ongoing coup, right? So I believe that the coup actually happened when Trump was elected back in 2016. There are a lot of people on his staff and his administration who bragged about lying to the president, not doing what he asked them to do, lying about the numbers of troops that are in Syria, lying about this and that, and disobeying his request. You had that General Milley calling up, was it Russia or China, saying, yeah, if he ordered us to do this, I'm not going to do it. You had all this Russiagate stuff, but his staff was going behind his back and talking with the so-called enemy. And no one had a problem with that, right? So the coup actually happened in 2016. And now it's sort of ongoing. They're trying to get back on track, right? Clinton was supposed to be president in 2016, and then they could proceed with all of their nefarious plans unnoticed, right? Because most American people enjoy being lied to. Hey, you're the greatest, you're number one, go back to bed, as we murder all these people all over the world, right? So the coup probably happened a long time ago, but they're losing control of the narrative, especially now that Elon Musk bought Twitter. So imagine if you didn't have Twitter, a lot of this information would not be able to get out. But here it is, right? Also, props to Rumble as well. I think that there are entities right now that are scrubbing the internet of Kamala Harris video edits, right? All of the insane things that she says, the crazy things that she says, the unintelligible things that she says. I think it's being scrubbed right now, but you can still see them on Twitter. So anyway, over the weekend, Biden announces suddenly that he's not going to run for re-election. He's going to drop out. And this is like hours after he said that he's going to stay in the race, right? So he was under a lot of pressure, but come on, he's senile. My dad started losing a lot of steps towards the end of his life, but he was still sharper than Biden ever was. So then the question is, who wrote the letter? When did they write the letter? Is he not making an appearance because he is not alive, or he's really angry? He's like, what do you mean I'm out of the race? Get me in front of the camera. I'll tell the American people I'm still in the race. That was my theory until Kamala Harris's plane just landed in Delaware, probably to be sworn in as president. And then they'll announce that Biden is unalive. It's interesting because his staffers didn't find out until the tweet appeared on Twitter, right? Or around that time. The signature on the letter is off. As I said, there's no physical appearance. He's not appearing on camera. It's just this letter where you don't know when it was written. It wasn't even written on White House stationery. It was just personal stationery, right? So what's interesting is that it took the Democrats 4 years to realize or even acknowledge Biden's senility, his mental decline. How long will it take for them to realize and to see Kamala, right, for who she is? That would be very interesting. I think this phenomena of denial that we see on the left, we see it on the right as well, but not nearly as severely. So it'd be kind of interesting how long it would take for them to throw her under the bus. I'm guessing Democratic National Convention, something will happen there, or she'll get a phone call from Hillary, whatever. Uh, One of the things that, and I spoke about this before, is that the left is guilty more than others of projection, right? They accuse others of the things that they are actually doing. So they'll call other people crazy. Yeah, they're the crazy people, right? So projection, just as a review, that concept comes from Freud, and it's the process of displacing or moving one's feelings onto a different person, an animal or an object. It's a defensive mechanism, right? It's a defense mechanism. You're going to attribute one's own unacceptable urges to someone else. So you're accusing someone else of doing exactly what you're doing. So you're seeing yourself in other people. And so generally this results in hatred, right? So that's why you can't see it in yourself, because then you hate yourself. Can't do that, especially a lot of those woke people, because they need all their safe spaces and they have all that anxiety. And so they project it onto others. So in the process, they avoid confronting it in themselves. So why project? Because they are in denial. They're in denial. And that's why they see it everywhere, because they're doing all of the things they accuse other people of doing. Hypocrisy, assassinations, coup, you name it. Anything that comes out of a mouth of someone who's on the left, uh, yeah, they're probably doing it. Okay, so that's the interesting thing. When it gets really bad, you kind of have a clue as to what they're up to, because they're accusing other people of doing it. I see this in non-political people, right? People that you see every day in your own life. I see this a lot. Um, so you're just going about your business, and all of a sudden they come out with a crazy accusation, and you're like, "What? I didn't even. How do you even get that?" And it's because that's where they went, right? It's something that they either have done in the past, something they're planning on doing, uh, because it's in their mind. Whenever certain situation comes up, they can only see other people doing it to them, because of course they would do it to others. Okay, and so this happens a lot. um, so if it does happen in your life, then you can sort of realize it's this phenomena of projection. All right, so then what about Trump? So I mean, wow, uh, he really is. So I don't think that the assassination attempt was staged. I think that was the real deal, as I just explained, because all these other events were meant to happen in the context of an unalive Donald Trump. All right. But he survived, and, maybe he was rattled a little bit, but he didn't curtail any of his appearances. He went to the UFC thing, the MMA, or whatever they call that thing. He went to the convention. He had that oversized bandage, and then his followers, like Swifties, just took their bandage too. And it was funny because people were calling it a cult. Well, yeah, but they're big fans. I mean, you see this everywhere, right? You want to imitate. That's why people wear jerseys of their favorite player. I mean, it's everywhere. It's just, so what are you going to do? You're going to comb your hair like Donald Trump? Yeah, some people have done that. So what's the easiest thing to do that night? The cheapest thing, just put a bandage on your ear. But it's kind of like, hey, a signal. I'm never going to be able to touch you, talk with you, but I can show you my support by wearing a bandage on my ear. And the fact that everyone knew what it looked like sort of made me think, oh, image was leaked, which gave everyone time to be able to imitate it. And so there it is. Call it a cult if you want, but it's just basically some people really wanting to show that they're on his side. Okay, so whose side is Trump on? Now, I want to think favorably of him, but the little things that I've heard about his economic plan, mercantilism, which involves a lot of protectionism, and if you're into the free market, then you know that protectionism is a nice word, but actually it's harm, right? You're not going to protect anything. You're going to just protect certain special interest groups and harm everyone else in the United States. And so I'm always looking for signs that, oh, he realizes that a lot of the people he picked to work for him in 2016 were working against him, that, they actually were coming after him. So I was hoping that he would learn his lesson and look to either libertarians or people like Ron Paul, former staff of Ron Paul, people who associate with Ron Paul, whether they're Republican or Democrat, and recruit them for his staff. That's what I think he did with RFK Jr., right? A lot of people were making a big deal out of it, of being a sellout or whatever. But I think what he was doing was he was recruiting a cabinet, right? Hey, look, don't waste this energy fighting against me. Work with me. I'll give you a position, right? And so a lot of people think that that's bribery or whatever. No, that's him saying, look, I'm going to be president, right? You know it. I know it. So why don't we just combine forces, right, and move this ball forward? And it shows me that he recognizes the problem in the medical field, right? And so he wants to do something about that. And so it was hopeful for me when I saw that. I was kind of very hopeful. But then I hear he's thinking of appointing Jamie Dimon or Larry Fink for Treasury, right? But Jamie Dimon, of course, is the CEO of JP Morgan, and Larry Fink is in control of BlackRock. BlackRock owns like half of the stock market. It's a hugely corrupt empire. And JP Morgan obviously is one of the larger, if not largest bank here in the United States, and has a lot of influence over the Federal Reserve. Yeah, they're part of the deep state, right? And so, is this rumor that's going around kind of like a head fake, in the same way that Rubio's name was being floated around as a possible VP pick? And then all of a sudden he picks JD Vance, right? So is it a misdirect? I'm hoping. Because if it's not a misdirect, then it shows that he really hasn't learned much of anything, right? I'm hoping that he picks people who are like him, outsiders, who are going to try to dismantle the state. And I was listening to the Mises Media podcast with Tho Bishop and Ryan McMaken, and they asked a really interesting question: is it even possible to dismantle the deep state? Because if you try to make a move against it, I mean, you're toast, right? I mean, they were able to call off his regular Secret Service detail and replace them with Department of Homeland Security personnel and U.S. Marshals, right? I think you know this by now. And so they weren't even really Secret Service for the close protection detail, the people wearing suits. And so that's why the women on the detail were kind of clueless, because that's not what they were trained to do, right? But there it is. So is it a head fake, or is this a serious consideration on Trump? I don't know. The court is out on that. And even if he did pick a lot of outsiders, would they even live past the first month? My wife and I, we talk about this all the time because it's just so nutty. But would Biden, so Biden's illness, that possibly death, is that because Trump is still alive, right? Like the plan was one thing, and now they had, oh, plan B. Well, that's to, have Brandon have a illness and all of a sudden not be alive anymore. So interesting. I don't have any answers. I'm just sharing some thoughts, something interesting things. But I did start suspecting that Brandon was unalive a while ago, before I saw even the first rumor on Twitter. These are crazy times, and basically buckle up, start prepping, right, for some kind of cyber meltdown, some kind of personal thing, spiritual preparation, whatever. You can tell at church, basically, what I'm pushing is spiritual preparation, because we don't know what problem will arise in our own personal life, but you have to be mentally ready. You have to be mentally ready to be able to keep calm and take action, do the things that you need to do for your own protection, for the protection of your family. That's it for today. Who knows what will happen tomorrow, but I'll talk to you then.